Okay, on the reproductive histology section, we have male reproductive slides all the way down to here, and then we have a couple of female reproductive slides. So I'm going to make these full screen and just go through, and I'll try to touch on every single part. On our lab page, it of course is going to be the one that says Reproductive System Histology PowerPoint. There's the video documents, and then here are some PowerPoints that are labeled with mannequins and a blank answer sheet if you wanted to practice. And of course, can't click on the correct thing. So we'll start here first. We'll start with the testes. And I would like to make this, to see if I can make this go full screen and see how this works. So what you have here is a cross section of the testes. Now the very first outer layer, and it goes all the way up to this point, it's called the tunica albuginea, and we're going to talk about that again in a second. And then down here are the little seminiferous tubules that make sperm. So to go back, here's the tunica albuginea. Maybe I'll just leave it in this viewer. On this particular slide, the next slide, all of these structures, so they have a pink outline and they have the cells on the inside, and then they have a white space. That's called a seminiferous tubule. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, part of one there, 9.5 seminiferous tubules in this particular picture. This is called the lumen, and then what you have inside there are immature sperm. Testes form sperm, they then move up into the epididymis, and that's where they mature. So the tunica albuginea is the outside. Now the interstitial cells, I'll show you that. Sperm would be in that white space. You may not be able to see it very well. And then the seminiferous tubules. So we'll go full screen. You can barely see little lines inside here, and even right there, those are the sperm. These cells between the seminiferous tubules are called the cells of Leydig, or interstitial cells. They produce testosterone. So basically, as long as they're functioning, men have all the characteristics. No testosterone, no male characteristics, and a man would be sterile, can't produce sperm. So seminiferous tubule, that little wad of cells, it might be that there, it looks like maybe a little artery, but that little wad of cells is called the interstitial cells. Now this is an epididymis. This is where sperm are actually stored and they mature. So this whole thing here is called a duct. If you get really close, this is a duct. That white space, and it's lined with what's called a ciliated columnar epithelium. They do not move. The little hairs do not move. They're non-motile. But there's a duct, and then up here is a duct. All that tissue between the ducts is smooth muscle, because sperm are stored in the epididymis. It's on top of the testes. And then during ejaculation, that sperm travels through the vas deferens around to the ejaculatory duct in the prostate, and then to the urethra. All right, so I showed you the ducts, the ciliated columnar cells, the smooth muscle, the lumen. You can do that one more time. There's the ciliated columnar cells, and you can see the columnars here. See the nuclei are at the bottom, but then they do have cilia on the top. We do have cilia also in the lungs, the different kind of tissue. It's called pseudostratified. This is just a ciliated columnar. And those cilia do not move. This, unfortunately, when these pictures were taken, there wasn't an even broader view. This is a vas deferens, and there's a big muscular layer. It has to force sperm from the epididymis around to the ejaculatory duct. The ductus deferens, vas, V-A-S, same thing. Smooth muscle, ciliated columnar cells, the lumen, and be able to identify, of course, that it's a vas deferens, or even down here it says ductus deferens, same thing. That's a super close view, but that's how thick the muscle layer is. The white space would be the lumen, and then you can see there the layer of the ciliated columnar cells that are inside. If you're wondering what all that is, some of that might be sperm, but some of it's probably tissue that broke off when they were making a slide of this. All right, these are sperm. This is the tail. You can't really see it. There's a head, which is the round part, and then their mid-piece are the body, and then the tail. And sperm have on the very tips a part called the acrosome, which is a lighter area that has digestive enzymes, and that actually helps when a sperm comes in contact with an egg. It helps break down the outer layer of cells around the egg. All right, now the last slide, the penis slide. This is a penis slide. It's a cross section. This is called a lumen. This layer, this is transitional epithelium. This is the urethra. And so on each side, now when you watch the model video for male reproduction, see the white spaces? This tissue is called the corpus spongiosum. It surrounds the urethra. On histology, you have to orient yourself. If you can see the urethra, then you know this tissue is the corpus spongiosum. If you were to move the slide around, you'd come across an area that looks like this. You have this kind of denser area, and then you can see this is the area with the openings. This is the corpus cavernosum, which is on top of the tissue that surrounds the urethra. This is on top of the corpus spongiosum. But the penis is separated. This is called the tunica albuginea. It's like a thick layer that separates the corpus cavernosum from the corpus spongiosum. There has to be some organization or there would be no erection. And then you have blood filling up those areas. That's just a tear in the slide. But this is called the tunica albuginea. So if you can see this, you know on that side, this is the corpus cavernosum. If you can see the urethra, then this tissue must be the corpus spongiosum. So we did all those. We have 2 female reproductive slides left. Go a little further. This is actually a fallopian tube or uterine tube when it's cross-sectioned. This is the inside layer. Believe it or not, the white space is called the lumen. And these little folds are the mucosa layer. And what happens is an egg gets released and it comes down and it sits in one of these little depression areas and the sperm have to come find it. So the mucosa is just the inside, the smooth muscle, serosa layer. Not a real thick layer, but so this is all the thing that looks like little fingers is the mucosa layer. This would be the submucosa. And if you go further out and you get in this area here, like right in that area, is the muscle layer. Not very thick in the uterine tubes. So you can see there, that looks like the muscle layer. Here's the submucosa, and then all that in here would be the mucosa layer. But that's what a fallopian tube looks like when it's cross-sectioned. This happens to be an ovary. Now what it's going to say, on the slide it said Griffinian follicle, but it's an ovary slide. And I'm going to go back just for a second, just permit me here. We don't really have a model for this, but the very end of our video document, and you'll see it. So here's an ovary. You can make it a little bigger. Going back to our slide, now this is an ovary. These little look like cells over here are called primordial follicles. Females are born with 400,000 of these. Only about 400 reach maturity, which is what this thing over here is. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, makes one of these little follicles grow into this big giant one called a Griffinian follicle. And once a month, one gets selected to become that size. So if you move the slide over, this whole thing is called a Griffinian follicle. That right there is an ovum or secondary oocyte. Mature follicle, Griffinian, primordial follicles. On the side I showed you that, and then the ovum. And that's going to be all of the slide parts. But here are all of these and there are stages to this. These are all primordial follicles, especially the smaller ones. These are all primordial follicles. That big thing here, this is a Griffinian follicle, and then that's an ovum. what I was going to show you, you can see there's actually models for these. You can see the little primordial follicles. This is supposed to be a Graphinian follicle. That's a corpus luteum, and that's a little egg being released right there. And I believe that's it. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, all right. That is all of the. I got too many things open. So that's all of these slides for the reproductive section.